What fictional duo were obviously gay, but the franchise never had them come out? Pumpkin Pie Ice Greets said. The English translations of Sailor Moon, Sailor Neptune and Sailor Uranus were cousins in the English version. It was awkward. DNFI Arenazzi said. By the end of the series it was fairly explicit if never stated. In one episode Gabby's mom says something about finding a husband and Gabrielle responds, "I don't need a husband, I have Xena." And then there's the really passionate mouth kissing when Xena is possessing Juxer's Autolycus's body, and when Xena leaves Gabrielle tells him to take his hand off her ass, which to me clearly indicates Xena put the hand there. Plantation 610 said. Alex Hirsch tried multiple times to include LGBTQ characters in Gravity Falls. The cops, Wendy, and also more minor background characters. In one of the episodes, he wanted two old ladies that had been struck by the love god to jump into each other's arms and kiss, but Disney got back to him and said no. Alex Hirsch, knowing that they were being homophobic but that they also would never come out and say it, demanded that they give him their reasoning in writing, which also never happened. Ultimately, the scene never made the cut, but huge kudos to him for trying. Sleep Dancing Queen said. LMAO, thank you. I came here to say this. I told my husband once that I thought that they were a couple and he said I was crazy. Until the next Sonic commercial came on and they were hang gliding together. To which my husband replied, "Okay, wow, yeah, they are on a date." LMAO. Kip Hetmerk said. Okay, I want to clear this all up because I often see this discussion on Reddit. Patroclus was raised by Achilles' parents, sort of like a foster brother. They were close childhood friends. They were companions in war, but Patroclus was subservient to Achilles, like a squire. They might have had sex, but it's not mentioned in the Iliad. If they had sex it certainly wasn't an exclusive relationship, because both Achilles and Patroclus had a female sex slave and routinely raped Trojan women. They might have been romantically involved, but it's not mentioned in the Iliad. If they were romantically involved it certainly wasn't an exclusive relationship, because Achilles refers to his sex slave as his bride. When Patroclus dies, Achilles is so utterly heartbroken that he goes on a murderous grief-fueled rampage, which is where the idea comes from that they were romantically involved. But that's up to everyone's own interpretation. Classical Greeks indeed usually interpreted them as romantically involved, but please keep in mind Homer lived several centuries before the classical Greeks. Personally, I always interpreted their relationship as sexual. But I think the English language doesn't have a suitable word for stepbrother, childhood friend, colleague, servant, polyamorous, sexual and romantic partner. But again, it's never explicitly said in the Iliad, no matter the translation, so it's up to interpretation. Kip Hetmerk said, yes, absolutely. A major point of the Iliad is that King Agamemnon takes away Briseis from Achilles. Briseis was a princess of a city allied to Troy. When Achilles conquers the city, he takes her as a slave and concubine. His soldiers get the other women they capture. The point is that she is property, and Achilles is mad that Agamemnon takes away his stuff. He supposedly loves her, but he killed her family before her eyes, so I'm quite sure the love isn't returned. Another slave of Achilles is named Diomede, who he abducted from Lesbos, and also sleeps with. Patroclus himself is once mentioned as sleeping next to another slave girl given to him by Achilles, who he abducted when raiding yet another city. There is never any explicit sex in the Iliad, but if a character wakes up nude next to their slave, I think the implication is pretty strong. It's also yet another reason why, whatever relationship they had, Achilles and Patroclus didn't have a conventional modern homosexual relationship. Here you go, honey. I abducted a sex slave just for you. That's so sweet of you. Exodus Riot 1 said. I don't think any Greeks had a conventional modern homosexual relationship. Their views on sexuality weren't really based on gender, but the person's role in the sex. There wasn't gay and straight, it was fucker and fuck he. If you were a Greek man, it was just as acceptable to plumb a man's guts as it was a woman's. Their version of gay only applied to you if you were the subservient one taking the pipe. Modern humans probably also would have considered the Greeks to be some pretty serious pedophiles. Most of their gay relationships were between teen boys and grown men. Also, most Greek men married in their 30s, but most Greek women married in their teens. Get that hydration said. And to backtrack to the Iliad, there's also the fact that Patroclus was older than Achilles. Normally the fucker was the older one, and the fucky, usually teenage boys, as you've said, was the younger. But Achilles was a demigod and higher in class than Patroclus, so he'd never be the fucky. But Patroclus, as the elder of the two, would also be unlikely to be the fucky. Who fucked whom, if at all? We'll never know. Provoculture said. All correct, but it's important to add, sexuality was seen very differently in ancient Greece. They didn't really have ideas of homosexual or heterosexual, and your sexual practices didn't establish an identity like citizen, slave, Roman, woman, etc. the way that sexual identity is today considered on par with racial identity or gender. Sexual practices were often seen as just that, sexual acts that didn't have some huge significance to who you are. Sex between men was common, even among men that would be considered straight if they were alive today. And sex between men was often seen as just a playful things that friends did, and was even common between Male mentors and mentees. So probably they did have sex. But that doesn't mean they were lovers the way we think about that idea now. And that sex didn't make them gay or bisexual, but they equally were not straight. Lance 20,000 said. I never got the feeling that Hannibal was pan in the series, more so that he was asexual who used sex as a weapon against both men and women. To me, Hannibal's love never felt like something from sexual desire, but from something dark and twisted like he was, from his desire to control, dominate, and lord over people. I view his love in contrast to his hate. He murders and eats those he deems frauds and unworthy, as the ultimate belittling. On the flip side, there is no greater gift Hannibal could give than his desire to own someone. Britorlob said. Source? I've heard Andrew Robinson, Garrick, say that the producers put their feet down on the idea of them as a couple from the very beginning when they saw the way Robinson played Garrick in his first appearance. It's very possible the two actors would have liked to do that, but it seems unlikely it was ever a serious possibility under the retrogressive right-wing leadership of Rick Berman. Arachnophilia said. See also, TNG The Outcast. Rick Berman tried not to let perceptions of what the public would find acceptable influence us too much in the choice of Riker's opposite, adding but having Riker engaged in passionate kisses with a Malay actor might have been a little unpalatable to viewers. San Jose Mercury News, Grapevine, March 14, 1992. Jonathan Frakes criticized the decision to cast women in the roles of the Janey. I didn't think they were gutsy enough to take it where they should have. Soren should have been more obviously Malay. We've gotten a lot of mail on this episode, but I'm not sure it was as good as it could have been, if they were trying to do what they call a gay episode. When advised of Frakes' comments, Brannon Bragg mused, if it would have been a man playing the role, would he have kissed him? I think Jonathan would have because he's a gutsy guy. Captain's Logs, The Unauthorized Complete Trek Voyages, page 240. https://memory-alpha.fandom.com/wiki/the_outcast_left parenthesis episode right parenthesis _and_characters. Like, that episode is literally about regressive societies being bigoted towards gay people. Guanam Lord Returneth said. The book is this to say on the matter. Many people, meeting Aziraphale for the first time, formed three impressions. That he was English, that he was intelligent, and that he was gayer than a tree full of monkeys on nitrous oxide. Two of these were wrong. Heaven is not in England, whatever certain poets may have thought, and angels are sexless unless they really want to make an effort. But he was intelligent. Revenger Short Packages said. In one episode they were very good friends so a guy would back down from hitting on Isles. They were so awful that anyone but him could tell that they had not even thought of that. I think Ritzoli started thinking and Isles doesn't think about it because she gets with the guy just through of sex once in a while but it's never in a relationship because Ritzoli is her person. Hooch Pandersinach said. Korra and Asami from Legend of Korra. The creators of the show even confirmed they were gay, but Nickelodeon at the time wouldn't allow them to depict a gay romance on the channel, so at most they could just heavily hint at it. Cute Yesterday 2820 said. I understand your perspective, but I respectfully and firmly disagree. Maybe things change as the franchise grew, but in the original, they are totally asexual. They just have to be. Their role in the story ceases to function if they aren't representative of the carefree spirit of boyhood and Symbol's attempt to resist his inevitable passage into manhood. Timon's lines from Can You Feel the Love Tonight? I can see what's happening. And they don't have a clue. They'll fall in love, and here's the bottom line. Our trio's down to 2. The sweet caress of twilight. There's magic everywhere. And with all this romantic atmosphere, disasters in the air. And if he falls in love tonight. Cute yesterday 2820 said. It can be assumed. His carefree days with us are history. In short, our pal is doomed. If TNP were intended to be a couple, the story becomes significantly worse, in my opinion. I, and many, many other men, have vivid memories of the tension that arises when a friend, with whom you've shared countless summer adventures as children, chooses to hang out with his new girlfriend instead of the boys. I think Corey Topanga Sean go through a similar thing on Boy Meets World, too. I'm sure there are many more examples. Timon calls them a trio, not 2 lovers and some other guy. Timon's sense of loss is real. He weeps at the end of the song. He isn't understanding. He isn't happy for Simba. He feels like he's losing a friend. I don't think he would feel that way if he had the life experience that would come with feelings of sexual love for Pumbaa. TNP plainly don't get it. Why the hell would he want to hang out with her instead of us? What does she offer him that we don't? They don't understand. They are friends, not lovers. Steamy Viral said. It amounts to absolutely nothing. I don't mean to spoil everything for you, but the end of the series gets really strange and ass-pulley. Kishimoto, the guy who wrote the manga, was being really pressured to keep writing material, and you can tell he absolutely just ran out of ideas towards the end. Which is too bad because he's a good storyteller, and aside from some quirks, Talk no Jutsu, the early Naruto told a legitimately good and well-constructed story. You can basically watch the Zabuza arc by itself and then never watch any more episodes and get a complete story. The only outstanding plot thread is who Sasuke's brother is and why he wants to kill him. I've rewritten Naruto in my head to basically include or completely omit certain things. I've definitely just axed the whole reincarnated brothers thing. It's super pointless and only waters down Sasuke's relationship to Itachi. There's just literally not point in it being a thing. Introduce Rakonda's bold concepts earlier. Tailed beasts, Kaguya, Madara, etc. It's got a decent base and a good lore world. Naruto could be retold in a tighter and better way in like half the issues episodes. Maybe when Kishimoto and Shonen Jump show up at my doorstep and beg me to rewrite Naruto. Sigh, but until that day. Steve's bisexual hair said. Literally the first 2 that came to mind for me as well. I know Harry Potter has so many ones that people wanted together just because, but theirs would have been so natural. Yes, Dean dated Ginny, but that Happy exists. I can't remember where I saw it, but it was some post about how easy it would have been for JK to write it in one sentence that doesn't take the attention from the Golden Trio, that was pretty much like this, during the 4th book. I still don't have a date for the Yule Ball. It's alright, Ron, Dean and Seamus don't have dates either, so we won't be the other ones. Mate, they're going with each other. Also yeah, the fact that the actors wanted them together by the end was adorable too. One of the great things about JK forgetting about their entire existence means you can think about whatever happy ending for them that she can't ruin. I personally like the idea going around that they took over Aberforth's pub together when he eventually decided to retire. Steve's bisexual hair said. I know what you mean with the confliction on the stuff. TBH, I know I don't want to support her at all, but I know she's still gonna get money in that anyway. If it's something you've always loved and stuff you've definitely hid for years, I would say don't throw them out. Getting rid of it doesn't change anything. The way I've kind of been looking at it is to try and buy stuff off of non-licensed stores, but ones actually made by the person, not art theft etc. And I did subscribe to the Geek Earbox thing, so yeah, it's pretty hard to love the series but hate the author. She's always going to have people buying her stuff and making her money. I feel the best we can do is not give her any attention online and fight back against her when she makes horrible statements, which I'm glad to see a lot of the actors have been doing too. Belavato said. I saw that as Finn trying to tell Rey that he was force sensitive. There were bits that could have been hints in the previous movies, and that part towards the end of Skywalker when he felt her dying. Similar to how Leia's powers were shown in the OT, she could feel Luke through the Force. I also think the confession moment was supposed to be mistaken for a confession of love, from both the audience's part and Poe's, which was why he was grumpy about Finn keeping secrets. There was a lot of wasted potential in the sequel trilogies. Finn being Force-sensitive and he and Poe falling in love were two things that could have happened, but the producers were too chicken. Keanis said, "Do Aziraphale and Crowley from Good Omens count? They're not technically men, and according to the book, neither have an actual gender, but for the sake of the story, they are both Moe-shaped and Moe-presenting. And one of the actors, Michael Sheen, our hero, is nearly tripping over his wonderful self in order to make sure we know Aziraphale and Crowley are in love, but canonically, they're still just friends. The story wasn't really a romance, but there were definite undertones, and overtones, of them being in love. Which is fairly obvious to pretty much everyone in the fandom and their mother, but since at the end of the first season, they're still technically friends, one might argue, uselessly, that their bond is strictly platonic. They're honestly basically married though. They haven't been confirmed yet, and I won't spoil the show, but if you've seen any of it at all, you know exactly what I'm talking about." Cardamom Poppy said, "For people who don't know, Kirk and Spock in the Two's pretty literally launched /fic as a fanfiction genre, and arguably fanfic as a whole. People legit used to swap zines just for Two's fanfic back in the 60s and 70s. As far as the why, TLDR, among other things, one episode features Spock going into a made-or-die hormonal thing and instead of either of those happening, he somehow sublimates his urges through the power of friendship with Kirk. So, yeah." KH-Trash08 said, "Sirius Black and Remus Lupin. The two actors even thought that they were together and played them as two lovers who had been separated for 12 years and one thought they were betrayed by the other. But when she who shall not be named heard that both the actors and the fans assumed they were together, she manufactured tongues and forced a relationship between them complete with a baby. And then very loudly was like, see, they're not gay, why would you think they were gay, how dare you?" Official Lil Tugboat said, "They bring this up in the TV show Young Justice. The Justice League is trying to pick new members and Batman rejects a candidate for being too young. Wonder Woman brings up Robin, Dick Grayson, being super young when he started going out with Batman. She says, you brought a child out into the streets to fight dangerous criminals, so what? He could end up just like you. Batman responds, no, so he could end up better than me. Batman sees himself in Dick, a scared young kid who just lost his partner and is hungry for revenge. Batman let his revenge consume him to the point where he is Batman and Bruce Wayne is his alter ego." Jared Oger said, "Solid Snake and Otacon. There's plenty of stuff that solidifies the fact that they were in love. I would say it's more ambiguous as to whether they are in a relationship per se, but definitely in love. I mean, come on, in MGS4 they raise a daughter, Sunny, together. In the novelization there's also the scene where Snake says, I don't believe in God, Otacon, so you're the only one to whom I can pray. Which, if that doesn't scream gay and in love, I don't know what does." There's also a tweet from Hideo Kojima where he compares Otacon and Solid Snake to the popular ship John Locke from Sherlock. Also the hidden codec in MGS2 of if you call Otacon while in a locker looking at one of the pinups, he scolds Snake for his overactive libido. According to TV tropes, pressing the shoulder buttons to hear Snake's thoughts results in a shocked Snake muttering you were watching. And, you too. Which are unique to that codec. Generally just them flirting back and forth and acting like an old married couple in MGS2 and MGS4. Jared Oger said, "Generally just them flirting back and forth and acting like an old married couple in MGS2 and MGS4. In MGS1 when Otacon asks do you think love can bloom on a battlefield? While some people think that this may be hinting about Sniper Wolf, except Wolf is a parallel to Snake, they're practically the same person. Not to mention that Snake is gender neutral about who can fall in love. Instead of saying I think a man and woman can fall in love with one another, he says people can fall in love with each other. It's the little things. Also, the Otacon ending feels like an alternate romantic route to Meryl. Something I feel like mostly other queer people would get, is that all romantic relationships with others of the opposite sex, for both Snake and Otacon, never culminate into anything. Yet Snake and Otacon are committed to each other and are constantly by the other's side. Just two guys living together, raising a daughter together, with no other women permanently staying. Yup. Totally heterosexual." Postmortal Pop said, "Absolutely not. There's so much more going on and just saying they fuck undermines all the emotional context in that relationship. Cap is alone in a world that is strictly alien to him. His friends are dead, his family, his first love, all gone. His black and white view his politics and justice are tossed right out the window. The guy straight up dips on our time the first chance he gets. Bucky is the exception. He's the only thing that Cap has left of the world he knew, and to top that off, Bucky is Cap's biggest regret. Cap took him into the war that supposedly killed him. Cap assumed he was dead when he was taken. He feels responsible for the tragedy that is Buck's life. Of course they're going to be tight. Cap thinks he owes this man for 100 years of torture and abuse, and they're both friends lost in a hostile future. They don't need to be dicking each other to need each other. RedCat85 said. Right? It's the weirdest but most difficult to budge manifestation of toxic masculinity that people see. Absolutely every close relationship between men is a romantic sexual one. Granted, if the queer community was getting enough obvious and acknowledged gay relationships on screen pages, they wouldn't have to do so much reading between every line, but I don't think people realize that there is actual damage in the assertion that men cannot be emotionally connected without it being gay.